Hello everyone, welcome to this new video in my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk again about Odoo External API, but in this video we are going to check XML-RPC and JSON-RPC from inside. In a previous video I showed you how we can use XML-RPC or JSON-RPC from a Python script to read data from Odoo, but today we are going to focus on the Odoo side, how this external API is implemented in Odoo. We are going to make calls using XML-RPC and JSON-RPC, and we are going to debug to see exactly what is going on in the Odoo side. And this will be very helpful because it will allow us to understand how this API is designed and what happens in Odoo when we use them. The first thing I want to do is to find a relationship between what I have written in the service that I am using to access the external API from Odoo and what actually happened in Odoo. For this, what I will do is I will focus on the script that I created for the previous video, and I will see in the Odoo console which messages are being printed, because I believe that I will have the first hint here, and after that we are going to use this information to go deeper in the Odoo code. So in this script I will focus only on this method, get companies XML-RPC. Basically we are first doing authentication, and after that we are reading all the REST partners where his company is true, and then basically here we are calling this method. Because I am not interested in printing anything here, I want to focus more in the Odoo output. I will just comment this line here, and basically I will just call the method, right? So now in the method itself I want to see which of these lines makes calls to the Odoo console and which of these lines produce which kind of log, because if they are different then maybe we have to look for in different places, right? So first of all let's comment this block here, and then let's only create the common object because it involves the URL, so maybe something is sent to the Odoo side, right? So basically I will just click enter here, so the new logs will appear now, and let's call the script to see if something happens in the Odoo side. Okay, I call it, and you see Odoo didn't log anything. So we have two options: either nothing was sent to Odoo, or something was sent but Odoo didn't log it. But none of those cases help us because we are trying to find some hints, something that serve us as a starting point. Then let's create let's call this common version, right? So we create a common, nothing happened in Odoo, and then we call the common version. Let's be sure that Odoo didn't create a new log yet. Okay, let's make the call, and here we have the first hint, right? So I will be creating here a helper for us, meaning that when we call common.version, then we got this log in Odoo, and from the log I will remove like basic information about date, the level, IP address, etc. because I just want to focus on the actual information that we have in this log. Okay, so let's see if something happened when we get the user ID. Okay, so let's clean this one and let's call it again. Alright, and then we have this block of code of logs. So when we did UIID common.authenticate, we got these logs. The first log, I mean, actually this is a duplicated log, right? Because then we now call version. So this log is the same here. So it's related specifically to version. Well, we can remove it from here. Then we have another log, login successfully for DB I do it, login admin from, and then we have another log here where it says post XML-RPC to common as well. Basically from here we had two logs. Let's keep here like from who generated the log. So I think it's better I take it again. I will delete. Let's keep also the level just in case it's useful later. And then I want to focus on the level, who generated the log. Let's make it structured like this. Perfect. So we saw that this part here generated then these two logs. Okay. Then let's see if just creating the models object, if it generates something in Odoo. So let me clean here. Let's call it again. Alright, then now we have 3 logs and I believe they are the same. So when I created these models here, we can say no logs. Okay, and then the models.execute QW, I hope it will generate another log. So let's make the whole call. Alright, then here we have an extra log. Let's organize us first. So when we did this thing here, I will just take like this, like we call something inside, and then the last log is related to the models.execute KW. And just by doing this test, we have very important information, I would say. First of all, I saw there is something in the Odoo side, a post call to one URL /XML-RPC/2/common, and when we said models.execute something, we have another post to a similar URL XML-RPC/2, but then here it's now object instead of common, which means apparently in Odoo they have created some logic to handle these calls, and this gives me the first hint where in the Odoo code we can start looking for. So let's do it. Let's use for that the Odoo environment that I have prepared for the videos in my channel, where basically I have an Odoo 18 using Docker, and here I have the Odoo code for version 18. First of all, let's try to find that URL somewhere in the code. So we want to find something like this. We have something in the add-ons cloud storage Azure, which I don't think it's related. Maybe it's an extension or something, but I think this is not the way where we have to find. And this is something in the package.py in the Odoo /setup. And if we say object, then for object we have also in the package and also in some specific add-ons. But because these things change from object to common and maybe also to something else, maybe this part of the URL is dynamic. So let's remove it to see if we find more things. And here I see some interesting things. These are the things for cloud storage, which I believe is not related at all, or not directly what we are looking for. This is something in the mail, but again doesn't seems to be what we are looking for. Somehow it is, but it seems to be some extension or something very specific for mail. Maybe we come back later to here. Oh, there. You see in Odoo add-ons base controllers we have rpc.pa, which seems to be what we are looking for. The other one is in common Odoo/test. This is for testing. And let's check what do we have in this file, because this one seems interesting. And here we have a class RPC that inherit from controller, and this controller is the one defined in Odoo HTTP. So maybe this one is also important and we check later. This is the class we extend when we are creating controllers in Odoo. And first of all we find XML-RPC/service, being this a dynamic part of this URL. So this makes sense because this value will be different things. And down here we have XML-RPC/to, then service, which makes me think that probably this was an old implementation, like version 1 probably, and this is another update. The URL that we have to focus on is this one, the one that contains the /to, because we saw that this is the one that appears in the Odoo logs. So I think everything starts somehow here. So what I want to do now is I want to debug this thing. I want to put a breakpoint here. I have this setup is prepared already with a debugger integrated in VS Code. So what I want to do is then make the same calls that I was doing in the beginning, and we will see what Odoo is doing here, right? So for that, just let me quickly run these things. I will close these consoles here. Let me see if nothing, let me see if nothing is running here. Okay, then let's start the containers. I need to stop Odoo, and now I will run it like this, so the debug is enabled. I will make this smaller, and I want to add a breakpoint here in this line of the controller. Right now I will start the debugger, and then let's do the same exercises done before. First of all, let's see what Odoo does if I only call the common.version. So let me then make the call here, and now you see we are already in the Odoo code, and this is the call that Odoo receive, and we stop there. So service, the value of service is common, and then this is calling self.xml-RPC with the service as a parameter. So let's go inside that method. This method is the one here. First of all, it calls a method check request. So let's go there to see if we find something interesting. And in check request, if it only check if the request has a DB. So let's see, what do we have here? So this is none, which means it will not do anything, and it will go outside, and it will continue then here. Now we get data equal request.http request.getData. This request is the one that was imported here from odoo.http. We can go inside. So this is the get for the class, so this is not the one we want to check. I will go inside again, and now we are in HTTP, in the HTTP file inside Odoo, and here it will try to yield. Now we are doing some, I think we don't need to go so deep. Let's just see what do we have in data. In data we have this XML here, which is the one you saw in the previous video. Format this for better understanding. So basically this is XML data with the XML keys just for the version call. Okay, in the parameters, right, so with this data it makes XML-RPC.client. This is the Python library that we saw in the previous video, and calls the loads method giving the data, and then this will return parameters, which is empty, and the method is just version. And with this, with the service common, the method version, and empty parameters, it calls the method dispatch RPC. And here I think it's interesting that we go inside. So dispatch RPC is a method inside http.py, and basically here it creates a dictionary where the key is common, DB, and object, and basically it's just making a relationship or to have something in memory to access probably later, where it gets odoo.service common, odoo.service.db.dispatch, odoo.service.model dispatch. So it's creating a map of dispatchers for the common, for the DB, and for the object. So this file here, Odoo service, we have common, we have DB, and we have models. So if we continue here, it will do something related with threads. Then it will get a dispatch, which in this case will be related to the common. So it will take odoo.service.common.dispatch, and in odoo.service.common here we will have a dispatch method, right, which means that if we continue, yes, we will land in this file here. It will get some globals here in this variable, and you see that this variable has different interesting things like login, Odoo, access denied, registry, RPC version 1, exp login, exp authenticate version, and from here, depending on the method that we are using, that for this case is the version, remember that we said common.version, it will return whatever we have. If we have this exp version in these globals, and you saw it here, if in this file I check for exp version, I find that this method will return this value here, which is basically a dictionary with 4 keys, which basically will give me the Odoo release information. I will not go inside, but basically this will give us the version of the Odoo which is running here. So yeah, it will return this version. Yes, perfect. If we go back, then we have a result, and now this result is a dictionary with information regarding the version. And then basically this will use the dump to get this response, and then now the response is something like this, and this is also something that we saw in the previous video. Let's also format this, please. This is what I show you in the previous video, where we have a response in XML format regarding the version, which means that this is what Odoo will return. And if we then now just continue, we will be back in our the script was successfully, and we saw what happened, or what does Odoo do to get only this version. Let's keep going and let's test what happened when we want to get the user ID calling the common.authenticate. Call this again. Now where the service is common, this was the first thing that we saw already, so I will just keep going there. Maybe let's remove this inside. Let's continue. Now we should be in the second call for the authenticate. So you see the service is still common, and if we go inside this XML-RPC, service is common, then this data will have, so you see here data now will have different things. So let's print it here, and then let's please format this. So now the call, the method that is called is authenticate with the database and the user and the password, as I showed you in the previous video. Okay, then with this information it makes again a call to XML-RPC client, but now with another method, which is the authenticate. So it extracts from here the parameters. I do it admin, so the database and user and password. And now the method is authenticate. So when we go to the dispatch now, we have again the common. When we go inside this one here with the common and RPC dispatch using authenticate, and then now we are outside. So I think, let me repeat this to try to find. I think either it was broken, or yeah, probably because probably because I wait too long. So let me just run this again. So you see the connection was refused. This was the issue. I cannot wait too much when I am debugging. So let me remove some breakpoints here, and then let me focus only in this point. Let's start. Okay, the debugger is running, and then let's run this again. So this is the first with the method version. I will keep going here. Now we are in the method authenticate, and it will try to dispatch this thing. So here, this is the point where we want to go inside with the service, and then from the dispatchers it will go to the common dispatch. So here, dispatch, it will go inside this. Perfect. It will get the method name. Now it will be exp authenticate. Perfect. And then we should have here exp authenticate. Yes, perfect. And now it will call this method. So we will go inside here, and user agent environment, we don't have it. It will create an empty environment. Then from the registry, using the database as a parameter, it will get the users. Perfect. So here we have the users, but as a class of the Odoo.API REST users. Then it will get the login and the password. Yes, perfect. It creates this dictionary with the credentials, and then it calls REST users.authenticate. Let me see if I can go inside. No, I cannot get to that point, but basically it's calling the authenticate method in the REST user with the credentials, and this method will return. So if we just call this method here in the debug console, so you see that yes, it will return more information, like the user ID, the authentication method, and the multi-factor authentication. And from here we return the user ID with the UID, and then that's why we can go outside this one here, also there, and we have a result, and basically the result is 2, and then it dumps that result in a response, and that response is already You can see here, I will not waste time, but you see is XML data where down here you have the value as I showed you in the previous video. And this is how we get that user ID for the authentication. So far these two things has happened in the common service. Now let's see what happened with the models. So we saw that when here we create these object models, and then we call execute KW to bring something from the database, from the partners. We have a different call, and then let's see how it looks like. So first of all, let's focus on some breakpoints here, not this one, and only this one. So the first call is for the version. Let's keep going. The second call is for the authentication. Let's keep going. And now we have a method execute KW. And we saw that now is with a different, is not with the common anymore, and now with the object. So let's go now inside and see what do we find. So now here it creates the dispatcher as we saw, and then the service name is object. So now the dispatcher is in the service.model, which I have opened here, and then we have dispatch there. Okay, so now the dispatch will be that function, and if we go inside, yes, we are now in the dispatch of the model with the method execute KW and some parameters. In this case, the parameters, we have the database name, the user ID, the password. Another parameter that we have is REST partner, search read, the parameter for the domain, and then a QArgs with the fields, and then the list of fields, right? So basically from here we extract credentials information, database, user ID, and password. It calls security.check. I will not go inside, but probably let's go inside to see, but maybe it's just for checking credentials. It gets the user from the registry and it checks them, but I will not go inside because as you saw before, it might be broken, but let's assume that here is just checking if these credentials are correct. If not, we should have a exception or something. Then it gets a thread with the database and the UID. It does something with check signaling, which I have no idea what it is, but this should be something for handling the database. So yeah, let's keep going. And then now here, depending on the method, and the method is execute KW, and then it goes inside this method. Let's see if our debugger can get to this point. Yes. Then we have this information here. Execute with this context manager to access the cursor of the database. Then execute cursor with the cursor, the user ID, the object. Yes, perfect. Now it gets where it clean cache. Yes, it gets the environment. Perfect. Environment.get, and the object is responder. So here it gets already the record set of responder. Then if it's none, it tries an exception. It gets here, don't use the result call, will redo the get attribute, get public method for the responder, and the method search read. So basically this method, because if you don't know, you can only call public methods, no matter if you use XML-RPC or JSON-RPC, and this is why. You can see here that this is the method that checks something. So if this model is an instance of base model, which is true, then it will continue. It gets the type, and then it checks if this method is a callable. So if the method doesn't exist, you will have one error here. So this is how Odoo shows you if you call a method that doesn't exist. This is why we have this error. This is very interesting. And then what is this here? Let's see. So CLS, we saw that is responder, and then from here we have just responder, addons.delivery responder. So it's checking everywhere, every place where responder is defined, right? I don't know if I can see, it's 72 places. Yeah, I cannot see all of them here, but so everywhere responder is defined, and it starts making calls with get attributes from Odoo.API responder, search read. If the method doesn't exist, continue. And here, yes, we found a place where actually shows you that you cannot call private methods. I mean, any method in Odoo that starts with underscore, then we have this error. So this is where the logic in Odoo is done to restrict us to call private methods. I think we can go outside here, because here it gets all the public methods and check all of these, and then it call retrying. It calls a function until the function returns without serialization error. So perfect. So I don't know if the logic will happen here. Try left 4. So we have here max tries on concurrency failure, so it will try at least 5 times. Yes, result. Okay, so we missed that part here, but basically the important part was there, because now we have already the result. So if we can go inside this method, this function, Yeah, perfect. So the reading happened here, then it flush, it breaks, then it commit, and then it returns. Then the result is already here. We have already the list of dictionaries as we saw in the previous video, where all this information it returns. Then we have the result is this one. It logs something in case is empty. Then we go outside, then result, yes, perfect. And then we are back to the dispatch RPC. Then we have our result, and then we dump that result, which will give us, I just want to test. So this dumps here, we have never go inside. So the result you see is the Python object, the list of dictionaries. And this dump here, dumps, is the one that creates the XML-RPC syntax. So yeah, basically that's it. Then it returns that response already in XML-RPC. This is the format that you saw in the previous video, and basically this is how it works. It's very interesting when we go inside the code and we really understand what's happening behind the scenes. Let's try to do the same now with JSON-RPC. And for that, let's go back to our script, and now let's focus on get companies JSON-RPC. So let's check this one here, then down there get companies JSON-RPC, and let's do the same exercise that we did for XML-RPC. I want to see which logs are related with which actions. So basically let's focus first in the authentication, and remember that for these we have created this method for authentication, which calls the helper JSON-RPC, and JSON-RPC is the one that creates the payload, the headers. Let's not print anything here, and let's return directly like the whole response, right? So let's start by doing this. And then, because I have already opened this Odoo here and I want to focus on the output, let's stop the debugger. For now, let's close this and let's clean all this thing here just to start fresh. And let's make it bigger because now we only want to see logs, right? Okay, then let's run it here and see what do we have in Odoo. We have this log. So this is JSON-RPC, and we have this log when we call the UID with the common authenticate. So this is JSON-RPC, and when we made this call, then we have, similar to what happened in XML-RPC, we have now a call to the authentication, but now we have post slash JSON-RPC. Now when we make the second call for doing the actual search read, we have now this result here, which basically this is when we call search read. So basically this login and this one belongs to the authentication, and then we have another post regarding the search read, which means that we need to focus only on slash JSON-RPC. We are going to start debugging in the code and try to follow this slash JSON-RPC call the same way we did with XML-RPC, and let's see what Odoo does in the code. Let's do it. Then let's open Odoo and let's search here for slash JSON-RPC, and let's see how many results do we have. We have one in a test. We have, this is another test, this is another test. So I think this is the one that that we are interested in, and it's in the same file, in the same class, in the same controller where we had the XML-RPC calls. We have also the slash JSON-RPC, and I see that they are calling the dispatch RPC, which means making a call to JSON-RPC is going to make the same things that we saw before for XML-RPC. Anyway, let's be sure about it. So let me start the controller, start the debugger, and let's focus now on get companies JSON-RPC. Let's only focus on let's focus on the authentication part only. Let's call Python 3 main dot, and yes, we have the call to check request, and when we go inside, we see it's the same that we saw before, checking something with the database, and automatically it calls the dispatch RPC method with a service, which is common in this time. The method is authenticate, and as arguments we have a list where you can see here the database name, the user, the password, and an empty dictionary. And if we go inside this method, it's exactly the same that we saw before. It's creating the dispatcher. It will go until this point, so I think it makes no sense that we continue going inside, because it's exactly what we saw before. When we go outside here, then we just get this result. It's basically directly the result, you see, the ID of the user. Now if we continue and we check the rest of the things, like the second call, when we made the call for REST partner search read, so the first stop here is because of the authentication. I will continue. Wait, just let me, yes. And now the second step here is the second call, where the service is the execute KW, as we saw in XML-RPC. The method is, so the service is object, the method is execute KW, and as arguments we have other things, like we have the authentication parameters here, the model, the method, the domain, and as a Q arguments, the fields that is very related to the search read. So basically we see that we are going to do exactly the same as we do in XML-RPC. And if I go outside here, so we are inside the dispatch as we saw before. Execute, reset, getting public methods. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same call. I just want to go outside here, and then now the result, you see we have the list of dictionaries with all the results, and we are just returning directly this data. So as a conclusion, the difference between JSON-RPC is that under the hood is using the same methods as XML-RPC is doing. Only the result is different, but the logic behind both of them is exactly the same, I would say. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you understood how the XML-RPC and JSON-RPC controllers are built in Odoo, and I hope after this video you have a better understanding on how this is implemented. And yeah, see you in the next video, guys.